Hi, I'm Captain Mike. In this video I'm going to show you what I'm doing with my latest toy. I know you've all seen or heard about the vinyl cutting machines. Cricut is the one that most often comes to mind. I think there are others, but I have a Cricut. It's an Air 2, I think. I bought it and it's up at the house, and I'll put a picture up here, I think, of one, but you all know what they look like. But they're vinyl cutting machines, and I have found a new use for it. I say new, it's new to me. Everybody is cutting these things out and putting them on their car windshields, like these monograms and things, and the little kids in tow or animals in tow or whatever their favorite saying is, and they put them on the back of their windshield and all that kind of stuff. They also make cards, and it's just endless the things that you can do with one of these machines. But I bought it to try to get around using water slide decals. I did get around the problems I had with water slide decals. I don't think I've made a video on that yet, but I will. But I like the cut vinyl letters for my latest application. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the vinyl on a charcuterie board or some kind of a piece of wood, and then I'm going to cover that with epoxy, like I have this little pig right here. And it works out really great. I've done it several times, and it really works out great. You don't have to use epoxy. This is a sign that I made for my daughter to go in her booth where she sells arts and crafts. She came up with a name, and I created everything on this with the Cricut machine. Had to do a little creative moving around in the application, but I got it done. And this particular one is sprayed with polyurethane, and it works out pretty good. But that's just an option. Polyurethane will work. It gives a really nice finish, and it encapsulates all of this just fine. You can still feel it, but it doesn't matter. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, in this case, I've got a couple of different things, but we're going to start with this little pig right here. And I have already sprayed it with sanding sealer to get the pores all filled in so that the vinyl will stick to it good. And then I will take and I will put the vinyl on top where I want it, roll it down, and then I will encapsulate the whole thing in resin, epoxy resin. And I have several I'm going to do. I'm going to do this little cedar pig for a friend of mine, and the pig I just showed you, plus these little boards right here, which are walnut, go to a family, the mother and her two daughters. And so those are the subject of this video. So I will apply this right quick, and then we'll pour epoxy on them and come back when they're dry. As far as applying these goes, it's not a real big problem, but you do need a pretty smooth, slick, non-porous surface. Now, first thing I do is I take these tack cloths that I use when I'm painting anything. This is well used. And I get all the dust off. My shop is very dusty. But when you're using epoxy, you need to get the dust off. And of course you have this, your vinyl letters. These vinyl letters are cut out of the Dollar Tree sparkly paper, which is a little thin, and normal transfer tape will not work. I had to use packing tape on this to keep this where I could use it. So once you get that done, you can go ahead, if you're really lucky, and you can pull it off. And whereas that stuff will not stick to the backing paper normally, it will stick to the packing tape. That's a little trick I learned from someone online. I got one little hard to do piece there, and Of course, it's got a little piece of paper behind it, but we'll get it all off. There, it's all off. So then all you have to do is orienting this right, and let's make sure I'm doing it right. I guess that's right. Ah, see, I would have put it on upside down. So we'll do it where I can show it, because I can know that I'm putting it on right. Because these old English letters or monogram letters or whatever you want to call them confuse an old guy like me. And I just place it down there. And you can use the fancy Cricut burnishers. You can buy them from Dollar Tree, or you can use these that I use to apply Bondo to when I'm working on automobiles or something. You can also use a credit card. It works good. And then of course you burnish it down real good, and then you hopefully it all comes off in one piece nicely without struggling as I'm doing here. But we'll get it. That messed up there. Alright, and pull it backwards. Those of you that have done this before, don't laugh too much at me. I'm new to this, but I really enjoy my Cricut machine. So then you emboss it a little, get it, burnish it a little, get it down, and that's what it looks like before we put the epoxy on it. Okay, so I'm going to set this table up now to pour epoxy and measure out my epoxy, and we'll come back and we'll pour it on it, and I'll show you a couple of tricks that I've learned, and we'll go from there. How's that? I think I have everything that I need to complete this, but lots of times I forget stuff, but I'll go over it right quick. I like to use these foam brushes instead of regular brushes, mainly because these are disposable. I just use them once and I throw them away. There are other ways to apply the epoxy. You be the judge of that. And I always like to have a few bamboo skewers around of different sizes. Show you why in a little bit. And of course my tack rag, because you're going to, before you apply the epoxy, you're going to really get the dust off these things. And it's just, in my shop it falls constantly. I can wipe these things down, and when I apply the epoxy, lo and behold, there'll be a little dust mote in it and I have to get it out. We'll go through some of that because I'm sure that I will have to do that. Some accessories I use is I got a lot of these little things right here at a bin store, and I've talked to you about the bin stores before. You can buy them on Amazon, I'm sure, but they work great to set these things on while you're working, because you don't want them to set flush on anything. You want them to set where the drip line will form without actually coming in contact with anything. And you can also use wooden blocks underneath them if you like. Sometimes the stuff gets on the wooden blocks and seals it to it, and then you've got to correct that, but that's not a big problem. And whatever work surface, I use, this is just, I guess, butcher paper. It has a paper side and a kind of like a plastic side. I use a lot of that. I buy it from Uline, and I just get rolls of it, and I go through a lot of it. And of course, I'll show you what this is for a little later, and they're really nice to have, and that's just a heat gun. And today we're going to be using this epoxy, which is a ultra clear UV stable epoxy. It's a little thick for my liking, but in the end it works out good. It's a little aggravating to apply. There's any number of epoxies that you can use. They don't have to be terribly UV resistant if you're going to use this stuff inside. I started using this on a project that was going to be outside, and those experiments are still currently underway. So with that said, let's kind of get on with this. Now I've already mixed up about 6 ounces of epoxy in this little red cup. I like these cups because they you could just throw them away. You can use them a couple of times after the epoxy hardens in them. You could just tear out the weight of the hardened epoxy in the cup and pour, re-pour. Works great. Now, a couple of tips while we're into this thing. This is not necessarily a video on pouring epoxies. It's just kind of this little project that I was in, and I wanted to make a video, and I didn't have anything else ready to show you guys. When you're mixing your epoxy, number one, this is a chopstick, okay? They work great. Always, as you stir this, stir around the edges real tight, because you pour that stuff in there layered, you know, the one hardener and the other one, and one's on top of the other, and you have to stir them up. And so you want to make sure you get all of it off the sides mixed in, and the bottom too, and just keep on. Now, don't stir real super fast. Just kind of take your time and stir along like you just got nothing to do, like maybe you're washing the soap sweat or cooking or something. I don't know. And see, there's a little something right there, because it's going to form bubbles in there. And we're going to get rid of part of those bubbles, but you don't want to form any more bubbles than you have to. So the instructions on your resin will tell you how long that you need to stir and how often and all that good stuff. It also tells you how much work time you have. That's one thing I do like about this. You have plenty and plenty of work time. So here's what we're going to do. I hope I've got this stirred up good enough. One never knows. And you're going to also need a paper towel. But hey, you know that already, right? All right, get as much of that off as you can. If we have any extra, I'll show you what I do with it. All right, now to pour it, well, this is where this comes in. All right, I start right here, and I just pour me a little bit, kind of like this. Now this is the second time I've poured this particular these two right here. The first time the vinyl didn't stick down good. I don't know what I did wrong, but it didn't do real good, and there was a lot of bubbles coming out from underneath the vinyl, like there was a lot of air trapped. I don't know. These are all problems that you're going to have to solve whenever you kind of get outside the box and you start doing things that your supplies are not designed to do, really. And this stuff is not designed to cover vinyl letters and stuff, but it does an excellent job. I say it's not designed to. Designed for a lot of things other than what we use it for. Now, you have to be careful as you put this stuff on the sides. You're going to have to put it on kind of thick, but it's going to want to run down, okay? And you have to keep working it. And I'll show you another thing you're going to have to do about the dripping as we get to it. See how that wants to move around when it gets kind of thick right there? You'll have to come back all through this process and double check. Now these are just a little bit close together right here, so it's going to be hard to kind of work it in. But I'll go ahead and see what I can do here. And I find that dipping your brush in here to do the sides helps. But you'll have to come back 2 or 3 times and get those. And then, as you can see, probably it's already gathering up there. And you'll come back and make sure you've got a really good smooth application. Now it's going to kind of worry you at first. It's going to look bad. It's all those air bubbles and first one thing and another in there, and you can't see the lint and stuff until you start to pop the bubbles and tell which is bubbles and which is not. So I'm going to go ahead real quick and put this stuff on all of these, and we'll come back to the next step. So I'm going to speed this video up. I was afraid that 6 ounces wasn't going to cover all this, but actually it did, and I've got a little bit left in case I have to touch up, which I'm sure I will. And so what you're going to do after you get a good smooth coat, making sure you get all around the edges properly. See, I see some stuff I missed. And I will see stuff that I missed constantly. But you're going to look at it and say, this looks terrible because there's bubbles everywhere. That is where your heat gun comes in. And this one is set on, I don't know, about 200 degrees to 500 degrees, somewhere between that, Fahrenheit. And what this will do, if I can talk over the roar of this, is you just work it over the surface. You will see the bubbles begin to bust. Do not linger. Now, as the bubbles bust, you will also watch and see that the epoxy smooths out a great deal. The heat causes that. Too much heat, you'll mess it up. Not enough heat, you pour it on a cold day and it don't want to do what it's supposed to. So you'll have to use this heat gun more than once. You'll go over it the first time just to get an idea where the bubbles are and where your little pieces of lint and first one thing is. And you'll have to pick them out and then go back. But this seems to be doing extremely well. I don't see a lot of lint. I've got some on this one here. Maybe on this one. Now if there's little tiny holes in the wood, which a lot of times there are if it's not sealed properly, they continue to bubble. And you just have to kind of go back. Until this stuff sets up, you just go back and you go over it and over it. Now, much to my delight, this vinyl this time seems to be working great. I don't see any lifting of this Dollar Tree vinyl. More on Dollar Tree vinyl later. And no bubbles under it. So when I went back and added more sanding sealer, and even sometimes I use polyurethane, and I'll coat the thing with polyurethane and sand it down smooth. That took care of the bubbles. And it doesn't seem to have affected, and doesn't seem, past tests, it doesn't seem to have affected the application of the vinyl. Now where was that little booger? There's a booger right there if I can get it out. Yeah, you can't see it, but it's hanging off of the Q-tip. That's a hair. Lord knows I'm shedding. I'm going bald. I'm getting old. Life is good, but can be tough. There's one right there. Now you don't have to be as picky as me, I don't reckon. But if you are, that's fine too. So anyway, we're gonna go back after we picked out the obvious lint, and we're going to spray this some more, and then I'm going to double check it, and I'm going to do all that in fast time, and then we will let these things dry. Okay, hang on. I'm going to turn this bad boy back on one more time, get some of these little bubbles that are popping up. This piece in particular has got a couple of little holes, about 3 of them, that keep absorbing the epoxy. And every time they absorb a little epoxy, a bubble comes to the surface. And most of the time, that will not affect it. By the time it gets ready to set up, the bubbles have already come to the surface. And it's okay. And there's a little bit of something there that I didn't like, so I'm just going to put a copious amount of epoxy on it and see if we can't smooth that out. Now the other thing that you need to do, and I've got too many of these, really, you should only do what you can work around comfortably, but I wanted to get all 4 of these ready to give away. And so they're going to be in the way of each other for this next step. Now, if you did this properly and you put enough epoxy around the edges, it's going to drip. It's going to form little drips. And that's what I use this for. You just kind of go around it from time to time and work the excess off. It'll bead up on your skewer, and you just take it off. And you're going to have to do this multiple times. And then, when it's all said and done, and it's hardened, you're still going to have some. And maybe I'll get around to showing you that. If I don't get around to showing you that, I'll tell you, I take it off with a grinder. I have a belt sander outside, and I take and flip this thing over on a towel and take my belt sander, and I just sand the heck out of the bottom of it and eat those little dribbles off. Makes it nice and smooth. And then if I need to, I put a coat of polyurethane on the bottom to completely seal it. None of that is totally necessary. It just depends on how anal you want to be on this sort of stuff. Wear clothes that don't count. Obviously none of mine count because I get stuff over all of them. Because you're going to get stuff on you, on your hands, everywhere. But this is how I do it. You may have a better idea. In fact, I probably do. And the fact is, there are tons of excellent videos online that show you how to use epoxy and to do things like this. And all of them are better than mine. My wife always tells me, she says, Mike, do one thing and do it well. But I never take her advice. So I do lots of things, and I do them about half-assed. So you have to excuse me for that. All right, I'm going to stay with these for a little while longer and kind of tweak them around the edges and get rid of some of the bubbles, especially on this one. And yeah, you can also run your finger under them if you want to. I do that a lot. But then y'all wear gloves because y'all's hands are really nice, and mine are already covered up with everything in the world. Put gloves on and go under them with your fingers, and that'll help you some. Give you less to grind off when you get down to the grinding stage. But that took, less than 6 ounces. In fact is, we got just a little bit left, and I'm going to go around these things, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what I'm going to do with the extra right quick. Okay, I told you that I would show you what I do with the extra resin. And it doesn't matter to me whether I'm using concrete on something or plaster on something, or even when I'm pouring slip, I always keep little molds available that I can put the little small amount of whatever I have left in. I just hate to throw it away. In this case with the resin, I use these little silicone molds. These are two of my favorites. I think we may have enough to fill this one up. This is a little turtle. And this other one is my little koi fish. That's one of my favorites. And we'll get over here where they are, okay? And so we're going to see what we have. So I mixed a little bit of this iridescent powder, blue powder, one of my favorites. I mixed it in with it. No particular rhyme or reason. Just mix what suits you. And for the little koi, if I should get around to this one, I've got these little sparkly thingies, kind of like opalescent, and I'll dump some of those in his back and kind of gussy him up. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this and we're going to pour it into this little turtle mold. And you know, you just kind of take your time and let the resin seek whatever it's going to seek. You get the fewest air bubbles that you can. I hope I have enough to fill this one up. But this is just a little extra because I hate to see anybody waste anything. And I like to make the little castings. And you say, well, what would you possibly want with those castings? Well, the kids like them. So when the kids come, I let them go through my casting bucket and pick out what they want. Now, what I just did is poke my skewer down in there so that if there was anything that did not make it into a crevice, it makes it into a crevice. With that said, and when I'm pretty comfortable that I have enough resin in there, then I can set it aside to dry, or cure, excuse me. Now if you notice, it's really not a good idea to be using all these powders and all this stuff around this, but I did, because if I goof it up it's my goof up. And here we go. We're going to put a little bit of this opalescent powder in it, and in this mold. And it does give a really nice little effect to it. It doesn't take much. And we're going to see if we have enough of this to go in here. So let's see. One never knows. It's beginning to set up a little bit, I think. So we may have a mess here. No problem. We have dealt with messes before. Okay, made a big mess on this one, but I'm going to show you how to clean that up. And makes this video a little longer, but if you make a mess, you might want to know how to clean it up. Always remember to get the resin off of your stick. Now, what you can do is get yourself a razor blade or something, a little knife. I like to use a razor blade. And if you'll do this now, it makes it much easier to dismold, unmold, whatever. And you just go ahead and kind of go over the top and get all the extra off. And it makes it, you don't have a lot of flash left over when you're through. At least normally. See, I'm making a bigger mess. Y'all like me to see me make messes? Some people just live for folks messing up. If you live for folks messing up, you're going to like my videos. All right. That's it. I've got my little molds filled there with my extra. I got a mess all over my board, and we're going to let these things sit and dry. And when they dry, I'll come back and show you the end results, okay? Well, about 24 hours has passed, and that's enough time for this epoxy to set up on this project. But like I promised you, before I show you what we ended up with, I wanted to discuss the vinyl that I used in this project. Now, I have a standard, I think it's an Air 2 Cricut, and their products work absolutely wonderful as designed in their machine. But you can buy this stuff at the Dollar Tree for about $1.25 a roll now, and it works pretty good as long as you're aware of a couple of things. Now, this sparkly stuff comes in about, I think I have 6 different colors of it, and then got this rainbow looking stuff, and you saw it on the sign that I made. And then they've got a whole bunch of just regular colors, just the standard colors, and they're shiny and they work just as they're supposed to, except sometimes you get a little problem with the machine cutting through the vinyl. Not much, not very often, but it does happen. We're not going to show you that because you get some of it. You can experiment and find that out for yourself. Doesn't ruin anything, except you know, you have to be careful when you weed your whatever it is you're cutting. Now, what I really do want to show you though with this stuff right here is a trick that you have to use. It's kind of matte feeling. It's not real smooth and slick like this. And I have found that the standard transfer paper will not stick to it well. It'll stick, but when you go to pull it off, you won't pull the vinyl off on this. It just doesn't work. So online, in a video on YouTube, I found out the fix for it. And we have this wonderful little deer here that I cut out and weeded, and it's the gold color, like I've got on my project. And I found out by watching a video that if you use packing tape, this stuff right here is sticky. Now, let me insert here. You may can get this stuff in a whole lot stickier kind. I don't know. That's up for you to try and find out. But if you can't, get you some packing tape and cut you some off. And all you have to do is put it on your little deal right here. Just go ahead and ease it down like you normally would. Only you're going to have to take a couple of pieces of it. And sometimes it gets aggravating to find out where your tape is when it flops back onto the roll. But all you have to do is stick it on like that and just overlap it a little bit. And on this particular one, it's going to take about 3 pieces. Just like that. Okay, and then of course you will burnish it. And again, you can use a really swell burnisher made for this. You can use a credit card, or you can use one of these like I have that I use to put Bondo down with. So rub it on there really good. And then if you want to trim it up some, you can. Make it kind of nice and neat. And then peel it off. And of course, like anything else, you're going to have to kind of work with it some. But if you've done much of this Cricut stuff, you know. And there you go. It is ready to apply to whatever you're going to apply it to. Okay? And you did that with the packing tape. So get you some packing tape. See if I can put this back on there without messing it up. I'll use it on something else. So that's it. That's all I wanted to show you on that little trick with the Dollar Tree. This stuff is a lot cheaper. It's somewhere between 25 and 35 cents a square foot, which is a lot cheaper than any of the other brands. And it does have its use. You can get it in permanent and you can get it in removable from any of the better Dollar Tree stores. The last thing I'm going to show you is these right here, because I'm real tickled with them. Yeah, that was a scrap. That was what I would normally have been thrown away. And we got those nice little things. Can you see little sparkly things in his head right there? We'll get him in line in a minute. See a little sparkly thing? I thought that come out was a good little touch. Anyway, if you care. And last but not least, what this video is about. Here are my projects. This is one of them. Let me back out just a tad here for us. And here are my projects. That's one little piggy. And this is the other little piggy. They came out really nice and glossy, as you can see. And just slick as a baby's hiney. And these are the other two. And these go with the other walnut little piggy. It's a set that goes to a family. So there goes my dog. Somebody must have moved outside. Maybe it won't ruin the video. So anyway, that's it. Appreciate y'all watching this video, and I hope I showed you something that is useful. I'm Captain Mike, and I'm out of here.